Intro to Art students. This is the video for April the 6th for my Intro to Art classes, both classes. To be working on your grid drawing, you need to have some drawing pencils, you need to have your eraser, you need to have your blending stick. I also gave everyone one of these graded spheres or value spheres. Great exercise to work on right before you do your grid drawing. If you didn't do one last week and you still have this paper, go ahead and do it this week. Last week's video, I showed you how to grid out your black and white image and the paper you're doing your drawing on. Some of you had fantastic success with that and you're ready to start shading in the boxes. Others struggled a little bit, and I'm doing some troubleshooting today in this video to help you out. So I just want to make sure everyone's kind of on the same page so we can get started with the actual drawing process. Every person has a black and white image. Everyone's black and white image is different for the most part. Very few people are doing the same image unless you're drawing that hand that was gridded out. So not everyone's paper equivalent is going to be the same. So I wanted to show you, if your image does not have good whole numbers to work with, you can make it that way. If your picture is not whole numbers, like I mentioned last week, you can make it that way. And I point that out with this pink highlighter here. This picture started out, I think it was 5.5 inches by 7 1/16. Those are not whole numbers. So I have made it 5 inches by 7 inches by cutting off or cropping the picture. So use your ruler to do that so that you make it nice full numbers. I ended up making this 5 inches by 7 inches. Your picture maybe is 4 by 6 inches or 4 by 7 inches. Everybody's picture is different. What is the same is that when you grid it out, it should be 1-inch squares. When you grid your big picture, these will be either 2-inch squares if you're doubling the size of your black and white image, or 3-inch squares if you're tripling the size. If you've got a giant piece of paper, by all means, triple the size of your image. So 3 times 1 is 3. So these are 1-inch squares, these will be 3-inch squares. If you're doubling, 2 times 1 is 2, so this is a 1-inch square. These will be 2-inch squares. Everybody's paper size was different. I had to kind of scramble around and make sure everyone had a piece, and I didn't measure exactly what size everyone had. So do what you can with that. The number of squares that you have on here, whether it's 35, 30, 45, whatever the number of squares you have here should be the same number of squares you have on this side. Once you get everything gridded out, you can start drawing. And when you're doing your grid on here, you don't have to have a 2-inch border. If you thought I said you had to have a 2-inch border last week, you don't. Everyone's border is going to be different because everyone's picture size is different. I'd like you to have some kind of a border, even if it's 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. This one happens to have 2 inches on the edges and 1 inch on the top and bottom, because this paper started out as 12 by 18 and my gridded picture is 5 by 7. I want a 10 by 14 grid in the middle, so I made 10 inches by 14 inches by cutting off the edges. And I showed that with the pink highlighter. So once you have everything gridded, I want you to take some paper and cover up, like I said last week, I want you to cover up everything else. It can be scrap paper, notebook paper. Cover up everything else except the square you are working in. I don't want you to think of this as a soccer picture, or if yours is a car picture or a dog picture, or whatever your image is. I want you to think of it only as the value scale, lights and darks, all right? That way it kind of shuts our brain off as to, oh, that doesn't look right, or that's not gonna look like a person or a soccer ball or whatever. I want you to cover everything up so that all you see is the box you're working in at the moment and then your grid paper to correspond with that same box. We're doing lights and darks, different shades of gray, black, and white. And then you work box by box and you finish the entire box before moving on to the next box. Finish the entire box before moving to the next box. Do not try to outline the whole picture in your grid. I'll say that again, do not try to outline things in the grid. I want you to work solely box by box. This is a training exercise as much as it is a drawing exercise. Drawing box by box will make your picture look more realistic. When you're done, don't panic, don't worry about what it's looking at like in the moment, work box by box. When you're drawing, it's good to have your ruler with you because maybe something comes up a certain height on your 1-inch box. Don't guesstimate that. Use your ruler. Take your ruler and figure out how far up this black line goes. Maybe it's 3/4 of an inch in this box. So when you come over here to this side, you need to double that amount. So it'd be 1.5 inches in this box. So that way you are making your marks in the same place on each correlating box. If you come to a box that is really complicated, it has a lot in it and it's overwhelming you, I'm going to show you a picture. You can divide your 1-inch box into 4 smaller quadrants and just work box by box in that until you get that entire box finished. That will help you if it starts getting a little difficult to see all the details in a very detailed box. If you're just working on an edge or a bottom row where the parts of the image are not super important, don't stress about that. Do the best you can and keep rolling. It's when you get to the main character, the main subject matter of your image that I want you to pay close attention, and sometimes you need to break that box up into smaller boxes and work from there. So if you're having trouble, feel free to contact me in the chat. I chatted with several of you last week, and I saw that several of you sent me pictures of your gridded image and your larger grid paper, and they look great. If that's you, go ahead and start the drawing process. If you're struggling to get things gridded out, I'm happy to do a Zoom meeting with you. We just need to set it up. But we want to get your stuff gridded out so you can get going on the drawing and the shading. Remember, you're going to need a blending stick, an eraser. I like the white pointy erasers too, for when there's a small area you need to erase. Some of you have the kneaded eraser where it's kind of like a piece of gum and you can stretch it out. The blending stick will be great for shading and blending your marks together. So good luck, and I look forward to seeing your work on Friday and looking at how far you've progressed.